the ingredients of great companies is actually pretty hard to find. And so when you get inside of a company where you've got a great founder, you've got a big market you're selling into, you've got differentiated technology, you got a sales team that you're inspired by or leadership that you're inspired by, that ain't nothing. And that's hard to replicate.
Welcome to the Revenue Builders Podcast, a weekly show featuring B2B sales leaders and executives. Hosted by five-time CRO John McMahon and Force Management co-founder John Kaplan, the show takes guests in the barrel, behind the scenes with the people who've been there, done that, and seen the results. Revenue Builders covers best practices for scaling and growing your business while sharing the pitfalls to avoid.
I'm John Kaplan here with John McMahon, and today we have a guest who built something rare. He's grown with one company for over 7 years, from Series A to a category leader. Sam Costello is the Chief Revenue Officer at Harness, the AI native software delivery platform. He joined back in 2019, right at their Series A, as the company's first sales leader under CRO Jason Eubanks. From there, he helped take them from under $1 million in ARR to $100 million in 5 years, and has climbed through nearly every senior sales leadership seat on the way to the top revenue job. Before Harness, Sam cut his teeth at Oracle, leading transformational deals inside Fortune 500 accounts, and at Perfecto, where he had scaled the business ahead of its sale to private equity. He's built his reputation on recruiting elite talent, running disciplined sales processes at enterprise scale, and never losing sight of the customer outcome in the middle of a deal. In this conversation, we get into what actually changes when you move from carrying a number to owning the whole revenue engine. Sam walks us through Harness's approach to building champions, what he calls their Duplo sales process, how they qualify and structure proof of value with multi-threaded technical buyers, and where he spends his time today between recruiting, enablement, and staying close to the deals. If you're building or scaling a technical sales motion, this one is jam-packed. Let's get into it with Sam Costello.
So Sam, hey, congratulations on your promotion to be CRO at Harness. Just to give the audience a little background, tell them just a little bit about what Harness does.
Well, first off, thank you for having me, John and John. It's
You're
great
welcome.
to be here. And thank you for everything you've done for the industry, and especially this podcast, which I know so many of my friends and peers consume and enjoy. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here. You should
Thank
think
you,
about
Chris.
Harness as AI for everything after code. So there's a lot of companies out there, you know them, that are writing code and creating it. We are how that artifact gets out to production safely, securely, reliably, dependably every time. So it's a very governed, deterministic way of ramping up the software velocity inside of your organization.
That's pretty precise. So, hey, so you move into the CRO job, right? And you had to hit the number in the responsibility you had before. Now you have to hit the number, but you basically own the revenue for the company, right? Has that changed your perspective on things once you stepped into the role?
Totally. I mean, actually, I had kind of an interesting journey. I started at Harness 7.5 years ago. So we were sub $1 million of ARR. I was the first leader under Jason Eubanks, who was the CRO and leading the East. And, when you're early, you're just trying to find product market fit and do some deals. And fortunately, we were able to accomplish that. And I'd say of the first 5 years, it was build the teams and put the revenue together and the goal of building $100 million company. Back then, 1 to 100 in 5 years was not nothing to sneeze at. And we were
Sure.
able to accomplish that. And then Carlos came and joined the organization, kind of rewired the way I thought about how you build go-to-market. Because at that point, I was mostly focused on the revenue. Like, how do we get pipeline created? How do we go then execute against that pipeline to deliver the top line goal? And Carlos kind of rewired me in thinking about, like, how do you build the execution machine that delivers the revenue? And so, today I think a lot about recruiting. How do we find the most elite talent in the world and bring it into our business? How do we then develop and enable those people so that they feel that they're becoming a better version of themselves in their time in Harness? How do we run a really crisp and qualified sales process so we're in command and control of the outcomes? And then how do we forecast a business that we can continue to grow the company at the pace we want and hopefully take it to an IPO? And so I spend a lot of my time today, especially in this role now, thinking about how are we elite at those specific functions. And then the revenue is kind of an output of that. And I still love deals. It's, if you ask me to, my favorite thing is probably being out with the team in front of the customer pitching. But most of my time today is spent on actually building and harmonizing that machine.
And which one? So you talked about recruiting, developing, training and developing, sales process, forecasting. Where are you finding that you're spending a lot of your time now as CRO?
Definitely today we spend a lot of time on recruiting and developing of people because we're growing so quickly that the business needs heads fast to continue that pace of growth. And so I spend probably 40% of my time recruiting today. One, because we're growing fast. Two, because we have a high bar for what we consider excellence. And so I want to maintain the standards across the business. So I invest a lot of my time in making sure that the people that we're bringing in fit the caliber of the folks we want. And then after that, it's, the development enablement. Are we running crisp boot camps? Do we run good enablement in between at the second line level in each region? And those things. And then, of course, we're doing MEDDPIC reviews or MEDDPIC reviews, as we call them now, to go into the deals and inspect. Are we on track? Do we have what we need to go win here? So, but I rotate, and then probably 20% of my time is actually customer facing these days and selling.
Yeah. Well, I know that Carlos has always been a really good recruiter and always pretty uh, nails down the recruiting process. So I'm sure you learned a lot from him there. Talk a little bit about training and development. How do you decide like what you're going to train and develop your team on?
Well, I think there's always like kind of multiple buckets. The first one is like, what are the at the corporate all of go to market? What are we training on, right? There could be new products that are coming out or new themes in the industry that you're training around. And then we call our second lines here the chief enablement officers for their region, and they're developing custom training that's specific to the needs of their team. Now they might work with our enablement teams and folks to build that content, or they might bring in outside speakers or someone inside the business, but they need to have the pulse of their region and be providing customized training that hits the needs for where their people are. And sometimes that's a mix. You might have like folks that are ramped in that business that are senior and they need something different than an onboarding rep that's ramping in. And so we expect our second lines to customize and deliver that content in that region.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. A lot of companies don't do that. That makes a lot of sense, especially even from a marketing standpoint to start to regionalize some of the marketing because of the different needs and different, idiosyncrasies of a market. Talk a little bit about sales process. So, and we're bouncing around here, but what do you think for what Harness does? What's the most critical step in the sales process?
We have developed a Duplo version of the sales process, which is that you guys know familiar with Duplo?
No.
It's
The
okay. So
UCAP, what is it? How do you spell
No.
it?
Duplo. If
Okay.
anybody listening to this that has young kids will know what I'm talking about. But
Okay.
Duplo, like you have the Legos, right? Small, tiny pieces you put together. Duplo was a version of that where they made that was much bigger, so kids could put it in their mouth and swallow it. So we
Ah,
have the Duplo sales process, which is the following: find a champion and then do everything else. And so when we teach sales process, it's like, can you find a champion and develop them? And then everything else from there. Of course, followed shortly by is there pain that the company cares about, they want to solve? Can you get to an economic buyer? But it all starts with a champion with us. And so we spend a lot of time around how do you identify them? How do you then go build one into a champion? How do you test them along the way to find out are they made of the metal that you think they are during the sales process?
yeah. Well, I know when you were at Oracle, you closed some big deals, right? I'm sure you closed big deals at Harness. Talk a little bit about some of the critical factors besides a champion. Okay, so you got a champion or you're looking for a champion. What are some of the critical factors that you found when you're navigating, let's say, a multi-million dollar, multi-threaded deal because there's multiple stakeholders?
Yeah.
What have you
Well,
found?
yeah, a big deal is a component of a couple things. One, a big problem. Like,
Mm.
one of the things that Carlos and I've been talking about actually quite a bit lately is what's the ingredients for a big deal? Because there's a trap I see sometimes today with sellers where they get excited, they go find some pain, they get very excited about the pain, they find a champion, and then they start to pitch the idea of a large deal inside of these companies. And I'm really a believer that you end up into a large deal. You don't like you probably never walked into a shop and said, I have a $5 million idea, and they just stroked you an order form. Like it's like you walk in there, you find pain that's important to the company, you start to build a champion around that, you get to an economic buyer, you build a business case that makes sense. And when the company and the champion start to develop confidence around that, they start to pull you into a large deal. It's
Yes.
not the other way around. And so what I see today is we need to be very methodical about how we're going to build these things. And when the ingredients come together for a big deal, the customer is going to be pulling on you because they've got confidence and now they want economies of scale. Okay, how do I get this technology at a price that I want? Because I've got to buy a lot of it over a period of time. And so that's how you end up in a large deal. And I think, we're very happy with a land and expand model. Let's go in, let's land where it makes sense. Let's delight a customer, make sure they're very successful. Once we've done that, we'll end up in the right transaction from there.
I think you're right. I mean, the big deals that I've been involved in over time have been where you feel like you're inquiring, discovering, quantifying. You feel like you may not be going anywhere. You feel like you're getting a champion and stuff. And then all of a sudden you get a champion and now they're getting engaged. And all of a sudden there is this, to your point, there's this dynamic shift where all of a sudden now they're pulling on you, right? They can
Totally.
see that this is really going to benefit them for a personal win and
Yes.
benefit the company in a big way. And now they want to be part of your team, right? And that
That's
is
right.
the definition of a champion. But there is this dynamic shift and you can feel it. You can sense it.
Yeah. So I think what I'm seeing sometimes as a trap is people, you'll go in there, you'll build a champion for a deal, and then the excitement starts to build in the organization around what's possible, and you start to head towards a larger deal, but you don't rethink about your champion during that process. And the champion you built was for a $500,000 deal, but now you're trying to do a $5 million deal. And you haven't got up to the new champion that needs to be the person that's going to champion the size of transaction you want to do now. Has
Yeah.
that changed during the process? And you get stuck now at the end where it's hard to nail down the decision criteria and the process and how's the paper going to work and all the things involved because you don't have the right person with the right influence to answer those questions.
Sorry, when you talked about land and expand, you're talking about champions in the sales process. I'm having a lot of conversations lately with CROs that are struggling a little bit with the mechanics of the qualification of the land
Mm.
to then expand. And so there's a lot of proof of value. I'm going to ask you in your business, do you have proof of value, proof of concept? Uh, how does that play in? How does it qualify early? And what's kind of significant about your process that you think gives you guys an advantage?
Yeah. We sell a very technical platform that's made up of today 14 different products. And so it's a big lift technically. And to the point John was just making about multiple champions, we must go win usually 2 to 3 champions to do a deal because there's some kind of platform team that has built the tooling that we sell. There's
Yeah.
a developer engineering team that's consuming that tooling. And then there's a security team that's got standards and governance and policies they want followed. And if you don't win a champion, or at least technical mind share in all of those places, you will get stuck in your deal for sure. And so even when we land, like, we want to come in with 250 or 500, we still have to cover up on all those bases to get ourselves in a place where we want to go do a POV.
You have to set it up first. Like, do you have to demonstrate it inside their working environment? So you have
Yeah.
those three parts of the platform. Talk about the nuances that with multiple champions, multiple technologies. Is it multiple POVs? Is it one POV with a collaborative showing of all three of those? Or talk
Yeah.
about that.
I can't say we've never done more than one POV, but we pretty much got to the place now where we can do it on one because we do more qualification ahead of it. But I think in the early stages of the business, we always POV because it was the only way to get mind share in the organization to get them confident. Fast forward the clock, we're now the Magic Quadrant leader for this space. We've got 1,000 customers, champions that have moved from one organization to the other. And so I'd say probably 30, 40% of the time it's some kind of workshop where they show the features and functions, but it's not actually installed in their environment. But still, like 60% of the time, we're going in and installing the technology in there to prove that it works in their environment and that can solve the complex problem they're trying to solve. And so we're looking for a few things. One is, do we have champion, at least one, but multiple champions ideally? And then do we have mind share in those other places I talked about? Two, do we feel good about the criteria for the POV we're going to go run? And do we have confidence that we have alignment with the EB that if that criteria changed, we'd have a conversation about it? And then do we know the competition we're going up against? We want to know who we're competing against. Oftentimes for us, it can be do nothing. They don't necessarily have to change. We didn't invent software delivery. They do that today. So that's always a factor in the conversation. And so we're very methodical in our POV structure and process. And I think Carlos has done a lot to help us there. But there's very few times now where we go into a POV that's not well structured, well qualified. And the only reason we shouldn't get a deal coming out of that, because our win rate's very high technically, is M&A or someone org chart changes in a way we couldn't predict. So otherwise, we're
So
we're pretty solid coming out of it.
on the POV, you talked about certain criteria. I'm assuming that there's like a threshold of highly differentiated criteria that we would want to have a part of the POV. You're growing very rapidly now. Is there a process where people say go, no go inside your company of yes, we'll do a POV, no, we won't? Whereby 7 years ago it was like, hey, just get in there and show them some stuff. Well, how has
Totally.
that grown? And
Yeah,
and
totally.
and what are some of the guidelines around it? Because I think this is what a lot of CROs are struggling with today is the more customers they get, the more mature they get, this the tightening down of what we've learned about what to make how to make a successful POV. Tell us kind of what you've learned and how that's shown up in the sales process.
Yeah, I mean, we are very buttoned up in the process of how we define do we have a champion and how we tested them, not just the rep in the first line, but somebody above that. Do we feel great about the criteria for the POV? Do we feel confident that we're highly differentiated if we go into the cycle? We're very structured on that. And then the SC leader globally signs off on POVs and as well as me. So if we don't put our hands in the middle and say we want to do it, then we're not going to go do it.
Awesome. So
Uh,
every POV has your sign off on it.
correct.
That's legit.
Yeah. I think the one thing, John, that I would say though is like the biggest challenge I see is total commitment to the process. Because the thing that you'll find is like, when you're the closer you are to the deal, the more emotional the moment is. And you want to convince yourself this is a unique situation. I've got this highly differentiated champion, or we don't need the EB in this one because of this reason, or it's so competitive and everyone's going so fast. If we try to slow it down, we're going to lose. And there's always a reason why you shouldn't follow the process, I find. And so it's what I see is the biggest thing is you gotta have radical commitment across the company to like, we're gonna follow this process because we know it's the best way to win. And if we decide we want to deviate for some reason, then man, Carlos and I are gonna make that call. We're not gonna hand that down the line. We're gonna call the shot if that's the right thing to do for the company.
And
What
then when
about
you
when the customer
deviate, how
wants
many
to
times do
deviate?
you lose when you deviate?
Well, I think I can think of one time we did in the last 2 years, and we got a deal, but not the deal we wanted. So I wouldn't
Mm.
say it was a wildly successful strategy on that one, but that was a particularly unique company that we felt a little bit handcuffed.
How do you get the customer to participate in the POV? Meaning it's not just a stop me when you see something you like type presentation. It is purposeful. The customer has got some type of commitment in it. Do you charge for POVs? Like, how do you get the customer to participate in the process?
Now we don't charge for POVs today. We do that out of our pocket as long as it fits our process. But I think the biggest way to get buy-in is you have to get alignment with the champion you're building or champions that you both want the same thing at the end of the day. And because we've done this 1,000 times now with 1,000 customers, that I have a unique set of experiences around how you get to the end outcome that would benefit that champion. Champions don't buy software very often. Most people that we would call a champion, they might buy software once a year.
Yeah.
They're not doing this all the time. And so they don't know all the ins and outs of how do you get from point A to point B and be successful. But if you know that what their personal win is and what they get out of this if they are successful, and you can come alongside them and you demonstrate your intent, like, hey, John, I'm here to make you successful. It's the most important thing to me. And I've done this a bunch of times and I've got some experience. Could I show you what I've seen be really successful and how that would work? Oh, sure. Okay. Here's one of the things we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to prove the technology, right? Because your boss's boss is gonna want to know, does it work in your environment, right? Okay. Let me show you some pitfalls I've seen. Like, as an example, if you're in the central team and you want to do a POV, but I don't go include end users in that POV, as soon as you say this is a success, they're gonna say, well, we never tested it. We didn't get to see it. We don't want to do it until we get that opportunity. Now you're in POV number two, and we wasted another 60 days. So it's like, let's be structured, methodical. And so I've had a lot of success just showing them you have experience, showing them how this benefits them if you can walk through this process together. And it's not about us like jamming some process on them so that we can get a closed one deal. It's about helping them be successful and get to the outcome they're looking for. And we just happen to have a
Do
lot of
they
experience in
have
how that works.
do they have like verifiable, outcomes that they have to do? The reason why I'm asking these questions is I get this question a lot from CROs that will ask me, how do we get the customer to participate in the process where there is a revelation of, how hard it was to solve that or how hard it was to demonstrate that. So they have to be involved in it. And um, and then also you know, the commitment aspect of champions and economic buyers to say, if we do this, we're done. Like we're we're going to buy this. So how do you
Yes.
build those two things in?
I think ideally your POV is tied to a business case. You've done some straw man. It doesn't have to be fully baked, but you got some straw man business case that says this is the value to the organization of solving this problem. And the things I'm going to prove in the POV tie out to that business case. And with some kind of metric. It used to take this long to do it. Now it takes this long. And I demonstrated this capability is how you close that gap. And I showed it to you in the POV. So that's the first most important thing is creating that linkage. And then secondly is going to see the economic buyer before you do the POV. Like, is this the problem they care about? Is this the criteria they'd want to see? Do they have faith in this straw man business case if it's not fully baked? Are we directionally accurate here? Is this the person that you're going to be looking to say, yes, this solves my problem? Or is there other people that should be involved? If something changes, can I come back to you? Like, that is the most important part of the whole process is getting alignment before you actually go do the PLE.
I love that concept. Why is it so hard to get in place with customers, with sales teams? I mean, you could have it where you're saying, okay, we're not signing off unless a economic buyer has said that if you guys do this, this, and this, then we'll go ahead and execute. Why is that so hard to get in place? I know it, I'm being facetious. I know it's not
Yeah.
easy, but why is it so hard?
It's super hard. It's super hard. I think it's hard. My experience has been when a champion doesn't want to take you to the EB, it's always down to confidence. They lack confidence.
100%.
If you were 100% sure, if you put this person in front of your boss is going to think you were a genius, you do it every time.
Yes.
That's human
True,
nature.
very true.
So if
Yeah.
I don't want to put you in front of my boss, I'm telling you there's something I'm not confident about that you need to find out about and then solve for.
Mhm.
That's the brass tacks for me at the
But
end of the day.
doesn't
So it's
that
like,
all come down to, even connecting the dots to the required capabilities or the decision criteria? It all comes down to your rep doing a really good job in the discovery process, right? If they don't
that's
do
it.
a good job in the discovery process, you can't connect the dots, you can't lock down the criteria. The
Totally.
customer doesn't know what problems I'm really solving,
That's
why
right.
am I solving them, how much pain I'm in. They don't know any of that if you don't do a great job
Totally.
at discovery. Isn't that
That's
true?
it.
Yeah.
Yes, and you run a great sales process. The champion will be wanting to show the executives in their business what they've been working. It's when it's been a little wonky. You skipped a step, or you didn't quite tie out on that thing, and then the champion's like feeling a little squirrely. Now they're like, "Let me just do this POV, then I'll know if it works, and then I'll feel confident to go tell somebody about it." And so, you got to solve for that problem, and
How
then
do
you'll
you
get alignment.
ensure that you're doing such a great job on this, Sam? Thank you. I mean,
You're doing great. Yeah.
I think
My
it's no,
pleasure.
I'm serious. I think this is really valuable. How do you ensure that a technical validation gets connected to a business outcome? Because one of the things that I see is a lot of POVs create technical awareness and understanding, but lack connection to business outcome. Therefore, struggle with how to connect the EB to it,
Yep.
if that makes sense. How do you deal with that
I
situation?
mean, there's only one way I know how to solve it. You got to get to the true economic buyer, and you have to ask that question. If
And
I could
then
show you this would solve that problem, and if I
I
could
know
prove it,
you know
was
how to
that
do that.
something you want to make an investment in?
So the people that we're selling to, they
Yeah.
have no problem signing up for the validating the technical connection. Where they
Yep.
seem to have the struggle is taking that technical validation and connecting it to a business outcome. Because many
Yep.
times they're not thinking that way. They're thinking
Totally.
about developing software. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
It does make sense. And I think what you're describing for me is probably a technical coach or a technical champion. You're not talking about a true champion because a true champion has influence and access across the organization. They
Yep.
understand what's happening in that business. Like now they might not be able to tie it all the way out to NPS scores and increased revenue or something like that, but they can tie it out to, hey, this is a problem that my EB said they want solved, and I know this. If I could prove it, would solve it, and that's enough usually business connection to get a deal done. But if they can't articulate that, or they're not in the room where those problems are being discussed, you probably got someone that likes your technology, someone you want to spend time with because they're going to give you information, but you would probably need to go look for a real champion.
Well said.
It also ties into, Johnny, I always think that it ties into like how the economic buyer is measured. Whatever level that EB's at, how are they measured? And then I want to try to tie it to one of their job measures.
Yes,
I would
definitely.
say, and I think it's getting worse right now than better. In the majority of the companies that I interact with, it's amazing to me if I ask the question, no matter who I'm talking to inside of the selling company, What's the biggest business issue facing this customer that I don't get a technical issue that comes back, which is great because you can't have this discussion. We're selling technical solutions. You can't have this discussion without having technical superiority and technical understanding. But
Right.
it's amazing to me how our own sellers, and if our own sellers aren't doing it, then therefore they're not communicating it, can't answer that question. What's the
Yep.
biggest, try it, listeners at home, ask on every deal that you have, just start off with what's the biggest business issue and see how many times you have to go back and reframe that question. You'll get great technical answers, but they'll have to continue to go to a business issue. I
That's it.
think I find that is it's Egypt old, and I think it's getting worse too because of all of the, all of AI, all how we're doing it technically. There's so much focus. Look, your name as a company, Harness, is almost like Kleenex because
It's a
people say
verb now.
harness.
Yeah,
No,
it is.
they say harness, but there's heart. Like when people say harness, are they always talking about your company? It's kind of become, you with
Yeah.
me?
Yeah, totally. Not yet. I wish they were, but not yet. We're on our way.
Yeah.
Um, what's fun too about that is like you're right, it's probably worse than ever, and it's also probably easier than ever to solve. Like if you
Yeah.
go you go prompt any LLM and tell me what's the biggest business problems at this company that I'm about to go sell to, and then how does my technology tie to actually solving that business problem? Like it'll do most of the work for you.
100%. I agree.
That's the wild part. Like it's actually never been easier to solve that problem and have an
Right.
understanding that you can go like at least a hypothesis you can go test with a potential champion and say, hey, does this land?
I agree with you 1,000%. I just want everybody listening. You can do exactly what Sam just said. And then ask yourself if you're leading these businesses, why are those discussions not being take place? Because the LLMs will identify it, but why do we struggle to connect it with our champions inside of accounts? And I believe it happens, it's with the confidence and conviction that's especially in technical solutions. I want to be ultimately sure that it does
Yeah.
everything technically that I needed to do before I go have any business conversations with anybody else in the company. I find
That's
that
right.
it's just like that's Egypt old.
Yep.
And I think it's worse now because I see more and more deals, more and more instances where deals are the time it takes to get a deal is actually getting longer and longer. I don't know what you're
Oh.
seeing there, Sam, but it's the propensity in the industry they're getting longer.
I
Seems
think
like
we're not seeing a material uptick in the length of it, but what we're seeing is priorities shifting really fast.
yeah,
What you think you knew about that company even 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, could be materially different today. I was on
yeah,
the phone this morning with a very large financial institution. We were talking about the funding for our project, and they're like in the middle of a cost overrun on a data center that was unexpected to the tune of $60 million. And the hardware providers are picking up all that spend, but there's no money for software projects right now in that environment. And that shifted in the last 10 days.
Mhm.
wow.
So it's like the we're living in the most exciting time in technology ever, and it's a wonderful to be a part of it. But it's also the fastest moving, and any assumption that you have about the business or your deal needs to be tested like very frequently because there's a lot of shifting ground right now.
Which means you have to have access to the right champions because the only way you're going to learn that stuff is either early or late. There's no in
Yes,
between there. You're either,
totally.
yeah, I love
And
that.
oftentimes I mean, they're second to find out. The EBs more in the know about what's happening at the top of the pyramid and how fast is the stuff moving. And then it's getting down to the champions, then down to the technical people. So like ideally you've got some cadence with the EB that's telling you is something shifting that I need to be aware of.
So good. So good.
And I want to go back to this discovery, Sam, because a lot of reps have told Johnny and I that one of the most difficult things for them is they can find the pain. They have a very difficult time for some reason quantifying the pain.
Mm.
Why do you think that is, and what's your experience with your reps quantifying the pain?
I think quantifying the pain is usually okay. There's a couple challenges there. One is you think you found pain because you're trained to find that pain, but the company doesn't care about it or the champion doesn't care about
Great.
it. I see that all the time.
Yeah.
It's like I go
Okay.
to boot camp in enablement. I work for this one company that
Yeah.
does this one thing. I find that pain statement. I'm looking
Right.
around trying to find it. And as soon as I think you have a problem, then I lock in on, but you don't think you have the problem. That's the first
Right.
breakage.
So it
Yeah.
still could be a problem, but
Oh yeah.
because it has to be discussed, or maybe it really
Yeah.
isn't a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a problem. It's just not in their top 50 they care about.
Right.
And so
Right.
you're going to wait 3 years. before it
Yeah.
becomes top of the stack, right? That's the first thing. Then quantifying it usually after that is like about asking the right questions. It's like, okay, if you find pain and it's important to them, then I'm down to what's my question asking? How do I get down to like what are the metrics that they care about that relate to that pain? And if I then once you get to metrics, then quantification is not that difficult. It's usually getting the metrics that they actually measure that pain by that's the hard part.
I actually think a lot of times it's because they think they have a champion, but they haven't built any trust with the champion. And it could be a
Mm,
champion, but they haven't built
totally.
any trust yet. And they just
Yeah,
start
yeah,
hammering the poor guy with questions on quantification. The person's like,
totally.
why would I want to tell you that? I don't
Yeah,
trust you yet. So, and
yes,
then they think, well, I can't, it's really hard for me to quantify. No, you haven't built trust yet. So they're not going to give
totally.
you that type of information,
Yeah,
which is like some of the most critical information to really build, as you stated earlier, a business case or a cost justification. You have to have that.
totally. You're right. You got to make champion deposits to get into a give get situation. Early on, champion deposits are usually education and awareness. That person's probably trying to solve a problem, and they're out in the market trying to get educated and learn about what's the best way to do that for their company. And so, early stages, make giving them education or awareness is a way to build some measure of trust that you can then get into a give get situation where they're getting things that they need, and you're starting to get things that you need to understand. Is there something here worth solving?
Yeah.
Now with this, we're kind of bumping up against, MEDDPIC and MEDDPIC, and this is a machine that's as old as dirt. It's amazing.
Be careful there, brother.
I say it's old as dirt. I mean, it's Egypt old. Those things are priceless for me. And when I say it this way, what I mean is the process has been around a long time. The
Mm.
way you maneuver and the agility that you need inside of qualification today looks nothing like it's looked in the past 30 years in selling. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that, like you talked about, everything is related to speed and the expectation of the information that you have. Could you give me your thoughts on that a little bit? You've been a student of the game with MEDDPIC for several years, and you've used it very, very successfully. Where we are today, what are some of the pressure points that are created in MEDDPIC with the expectation of the customer, with AI, with just the state of enterprise selling today?
Yeah. I think the first comment I'd make is if you do MedPick well in an organization, it should be very, very much embraced by the sales team. Like, MedPick is an incredible tool for qualifying where do I stand in a deal and how do I get to the place I want to get. End of the day, we want to win, of course. We want to close deals and reps want to make money. And MedPick is a beautiful thing to help you understand what are the gaps. And when, I always feel very strongly like the rep is the most emotional around the deal. The first line's the next closest person, probably the SC. And as you get layers away, the emotion disappears and you start to be able to think more logically about what's happening in this actual opportunity. And so MedPick is a great way. So when we do a MedPick review, like I would tell a leader if that rep didn't leave that MedPick review really excited that they did it, something didn't go right in it.
Mm.
Because you should be helping them uncover the gaps in that opportunity so they can go close it so they have a better chance of winning. And every rep wants to do that. Right. So that's first, like, how do you think about it and how do you implement it in your shop is super important. And then I think, you got to be hyper aware today that things are changing quickly. And so examples for us right now are there's now AI committees that are being stood up. So if your tool has any kind of AI in it and your champion thinks they know a buying process from 6 months ago, it's different because there's now an AI committee
Great
that
point.
wants to review all AI investments. There's probably an AI addendum. It's like, hey, I'm forecasting this deal. It's in commit, and I've already got an MSA with the customer. And then as soon as you get to purchasing, and you only got 2 weeks left in the quarter, and they're like, well, hang on, we don't have an AI addendum on this MSA, so we got
Wow.
to send you to legal. That's
See
a
it
six
all
week
the time.
process. You just slipped your deal. So like,
Yes.
there's a lot of things happening in these processes right now, and so we need to be, what we're having success with A, doing Medford reviews to talk about it, and then B, we're talking a lot in the ecosystem around other software providers, like what are they seeing in these shops when they're interfacing with them? Are new steps being introduced? Does the champion we think we know about actually have they done it before somewhere else? Do they have a track record here? Is this EB, usually consistent with their word? Will they honor what they say? That kind of thing. Like we're having to do a lot of triangulation to try to find pitfalls and make sure we don't step in them. And
And
even
do
then,
you
it's
do that
still
through
very
a partner
difficult.
community?
Yeah.
Sure. Or, but
Okay.
you can call other software companies that are non-competitive that you know. And we can
Great
call
idea.
leaders in other companies and go, hey, I hear you're running an opportunity here. So are we. What do you know? What do we know?
What a great
Love it.
idea.
Love it.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's one of the best ways to get real-time information about what's playing out because they might be 4 weeks ahead of you in a buying process and they know things that you don't know, or vice versa.
Now, in the old days, we would say that, yes, I'd smile at you and say, yeah, but how are you not competition for access to funding? You don't compete with them,
It's
but there's
fair.
only so many funds available.
Yeah, that's fair. I think my experience right now is the buying environment's so difficult that you're looking for any information you can get to know where you stand and what the
Yeah.
pitfalls are. That's more important than like, will they steal my funding? Because there's
Yeah.
funding out there for these projects. If you're tied to the right things, you're going to get money.
The other thing
So
I'd like to highlight that you said, Sam, so good, brother. This is so good. The other thing that you said is if they don't come out of it excited, then something didn't go right. I love what you said on that because I'd like to encourage people that go to these deal reviews and you do MEDDPIC reviews or what have you. You should expect gaps because
totally,
that's where the golden nuggets are. And so
that's
I
it.
think that people go to these MEDDPIC reviews and they're like, I can't show any chinks in the armor. Like I gotta try to convince my company that I have a champion. And too much time is wasted in these reviews.
That's it. That's
Yes.
Yeah,
it.
you agree? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, if it's a compliance effort, then you're just trying to prove that you already got what that person wants, so that you can get off the phone as fast as possible.
Right.
If it's an exercise on until we're in closed one, we should assume there's something we don't know, and if we learn it, we'd have a better chance of winning. And let's find any gaps we can. Then it's a hunt. Now it's a
Yeah.
hunt to figure out like what could go wrong, and how do we get ahead of it, or what's not going right, and how do we fix it. And then the other important thing is like it's very important that you don't leave all of the work to just the AE. Like when I do a MedPick review, when we come out of there with a strategy and what we want to do next, I'll always have at least one action item in my play that I'm going to go do for that rep. Might be call a board member or reach out to an executive or look at the pricing or unpack the business case or something. But I don't want reps to ever leave that thing going, I got to do all this work by myself. And I'm like, it's like, no, let's divvy up the work here to the appropriate person. Let's go execute on it together and let's circle back in 2 weeks and find out where we stand.
I love that. I heard one great leader say one time that it's not a crime not to know when doing a MedPIC review. The leader said, it's not a crime not to know, but it's a crime punishable by death not to be doing anything about it.
Yeah.
Which was just, I mean, it kind of sets the stage for stop trying to defend. And if there's value in the gap, let's go close the gap.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's just a really good mindset for listeners to, you know, leaders to, like you said, don't turn it into a compliance because it's over. You lose so much. And then people that are experiencing it with their leaders expect to get great value out of the discovery process of MedPIC.
Totally.
Yeah.
If it becomes compliance in a shop, imagine this: comes compliance, a rep follows your process, then doesn't win the deal. What does it say about your process?
Yeah.
The process isn't worth following. Like you lost, not only did you not get what you wanted, then you lose the mind share in the organization around that process.
Yeah.
So it's like the
Or they
process has
also
to work for
use it
everyone.
as like they use MedPick as like a checklist. They check, check,
Yeah.
check, but they don't really use it as like a true deal qualification weapon. They don't use it to say, as we talked about, like, here's what I'm really missing. Here's where I am in the deal. Here's the information I have. Here's what I don't have. Here's who I have to go talk to next. They don't use it as a tool to understand, like, here's my roadmap on how I can win this deal.
That's
They just think
That's
it's a
it.
checklist. Oh yeah, check. Yeah, I have a champion. When you really
You know,
don't.
Yeah.
You're not
I
it's
filled
doing
out the
it.
field. I filled out the field in Salesforce. I'm good.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
right.
got it.
and it's the story behind the triangulation. Like I love what you guys are saying here, because for me, any one answer, any one understanding in MedPIC is not the answer for the deal. People ask me all the time. They'll say, "Hey, what's the most component? What's the most important component of MedPIC?" And I've refused to answer that question for 30 years or however long it's been around. Not because I don't think it's a good question, but it's totally irrelevant to uh, any unique scenario. What I mean by that is like I can look at and triangulate the identification of pain, and if the identification of pain, I ask myself if that is it big enough And if somebody says it's big enough, and then I look at the economic buyer and I can triangulate the identification of pain that that buyer is going to care about that level of pain, I can look at competition and I can look at differentiated decision criteria. It's like it's how it all works together as the story of the opportunity. And I can't say that enough for people listening out here. It's not a check in the freaking box.
Totally.
Which a lot of
So
companies
right.
use it for. Because if you ask some
Totally.
people, walk me through MEDDPIC and then how you utilize it, they fall apart.
Well, look at what all the AI companies are doing now, Johnny, trying to automate all this. They're just trying to automate whatever's in Salesforce to give you a faster answer of whatever slop you have in
Just because
Salesforce.
it's in Salesforce doesn't mean that it's qualified, right?
100%.
Just like if you stand up in front of me and say, I got a $2 million deal, and I say, you have a champion? You say, yeah, well, what am I going to do now? I ask you 20 questions to figure out if you really have a champion. And it's just because it's in Salesforce doesn't mean it's qualified.
You've just articulated to me the exact definition of AI slop. That's what AI slop means to me in the sales, in the sales
Yeah.
world. That's what it means.
Yeah.
One of the comment I'd make too about just MEDDPIC in general or MEDDPIC reviews, like I think there's things leading up to that are, if you get right, make that much better. Well, I'll give you an example. Like in our recruiting profile, we really have a strong bias for coachability. I think many people would say that. We screen hard for it. Okay. And then I have a built-in environment with the rest of the team around radical candor. Speak openly in the environment about what's going well, what's not going well. And we find problems, we go aggressively run at them. Okay. If I hire people that are coachable and I build an environment where we should talk openly about what's going on, and then I get to a MEDDPIC review, the expectation is not that everything's rosy and there are no problems here. It's like, no, we speak openly in my culture and you want to be great. So let's start to unpack this thing and figure out how we go win. That is like those leading indicators coming up to that moment. If you got the right people, it's like to my point earlier, it's a great exercise. They walk away feeling awesome. They got 5 things to go work on. They're going to help them move that deal forward when they walked into the deal kind of feeling stuck, weren't sure where to go next. Like it's a really great opportunity. But if it's like, hey, my coachability is low and I just want you to think everything's great, and I come to this process and tell you everything's great so I can get up the other side of it, and then I have to go struggle through my deal, it's like that didn't work out very well for anybody.
Talk to me about how that shows up in recruiting. Because what you just said, I'm sure everybody on this podcast is listening to it and say, I agree with that 100%. And yet, I still see people get into companies that don't have to prove that they can do what you just said.
Yeah. Are you talking about specifically like how do I find out if someone's coachable? If I'm recruiting?
Coachable and
how do you?
Coachable and they have the
adaptability.
They have the adaptability and the agility inside of qualification. How do you do that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think the first thing is you look at their background. A person's trajectory over time is one of the greatest predictors of who they are as a person, not the story they tell you on the interview. So, you probably won't be surprised. We teach our leaders go bottom up on the resume and LinkedIn from the very beginning to where they are today. Then you're looking for things along the way. Yeah. We tend to go towards athletes because athletes got coached, but there's all kinds of things you can coach on. You can be part of a debate team where you got coached. You can be in a band where you got coached. Did you somewhere along your journey, did you spend time around a team and did someone give you direction and did you follow it? Secondly, I love to ask what's their favorite thing about a leader that they worked with. The answers to that question are super telling. You'll get people that are like, oh my gosh, man, I worked for Johnny Cap and man, the guy was incredible. He would just told me this, taught me that, and made me better. And 4 years later, I was like a different person. Whereas like, I liked working for Sally because she just got all the problems out of my way and just let me sell. It's like, well, that's not someone like that person doesn't clearly value the environment of education and development. You can ask them what kind of books they like to read, what kind of podcasts they like to listen to. What's the last time they got feedback and how do they handle it? What's the biggest thing they've learned in the last year about their professional career, from their expertise? There's all kinds of things you can ask to find out what's the person you're dealing with and do they value coaching. And then oftentimes, like in my environment that we've created here with Carlos and team, is like they know that we value this, so they'll come to the interview like hungry, like I want to be in your business because I want to be developed, and I hear that's what you do. Okay. You'd probably deal with someone that's coachable, right? That's their number one driver. It's not tell me about the technology, show me the compensation plan. Did someone make $1 million? Like, can I be great? And will you show me how to do it?
And another one, I love this. These seem so simple, but I hope people are writing these down because they're so powerful. Another one I like is, what is the deal you're most proud of?
Yeah.
And then actually, this should be an interview. Actually, walk me through how you qualified it and how they talk about how they qualified that deal is going to tell you everything about how they're going to, do it inside of your organization.
Yeah. You
And
want to hear another
people,
great one?
yeah, please.
Tell me about a deal you lost and what did you learn from it?
100%. And
What'd you learn
why?
from it?
Yeah.
Well, my SC screwed up the POV and then it's like, okay. Or it's like, hey, you know what? I found out, I thought I had a champion. And then I got there.
Wasn't ready, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Yeah. But it's like, hey, I thought I had a champion, but then I found out I didn't. And, we lost the deal. It's like, okay, that person took ownership. Not a fun experience. They probably won't do it again, but they took ownership of that moment and learned something from it.
Can you
that's another
imagine
great one.
recruiting a person today and interviewing a person today and not asking them in a way to prove for evidence that they understand actually what MEDDPIC is and how it actually manifests itself in an opportunity? But yet, if you're listening to this podcast, ask yourself, did you ask that question on the last interview that you did? And if you didn't, hey, it's not a crime not to do it, but you're going to not get a great situation going forward if you hire those people. I don't know why they don't do it.
Assumption.
They say, oh, yeah, we got force management training. We got that force management training. I do the MEDDPIC playbook, and they tell you about all the great leaders. Well, no problem. Just give me an example of how it manifests on your favorite deal and on a deal that was an area of opportunity for you.
Yeah.
Get right to the point.
So true. So a lot of it, we make, interviewing is so interesting. I've gotten a lot better at it. I probably interview 400 people a year right now. So I've honed it a lot over the last couple of years. I would say I was not a great interviewer a few years ago.
What did you change? What did you change?
It's separating the story from the facts.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. And then learning a pattern of asking the right questions at the right time in the interview to get what you're trying to suss out. And then one that's a little bit uncomfortable, but I've had to get better at is interrupting people. I prepare them for it now because time's constrained and I need to figure out what I need to know to make a decision. And so I will, like, oftentimes they're in the middle of their story they practiced it. They're trying to win a job, right? They know what they want to say. And so kind of breaking the flow and getting in the questions you need to get in to make a decision is super important. But I think a lot of people are just sitting there listening and trying to parse through the kernels to see if they got what they wanted versus like kind of directing the dialogue and owning that discussion to make sure they're bottoming it out.
Really qualifying is what you're doing.
Exactly.
And what about the war on talent? Because you're in this tech stack.
Yeah.
And the war on talent, Johnny and I were just talking earlier today about certain companies that are sucking the life out of the industry with all their resources. And, they're sucking the talent out. They're offering huge amounts of money with this war on talent. How is interviewing changing for you as it relates to how much you're qualifying an individual and how much you're actually developing a value proposition to draw them into your company? Has anything changed? What's the situation today?
I would not say on that front, nothing changed. We're always selling until they're buying. Once they're buying, we qualify them. So we're in sell mode until we have a candidate that's leaning into what we're doing. And then we want to qualify that we're getting what we want out of it. What is happened today, though, yeah, it is a talent war. Like we had one a few years ago during ZERP, when every VC was flush with cash and wanted to expand their sales team. This is different because it's OTEs and guaranteed compensation and things that we haven't seen in the industry before. And based on companies with like crazy product market fit out of the gate with up to the right revenue curve. So that's an interesting situation we find ourselves in. And I think that's when it's really important to have built something that gives them more than just money. Like I'm big on, like, if you're in sales and you're good at your job, you'll always make money. So is that the number one determining factor for how you're going to pick your career path going forward? For me, it's not. Like I'm motivated by things that are outside of money, although I do like to make it and I don't have enough of it yet. But the things that really drive me are, could I build a durable company? Something that really exciting to me. Like, could I build something that would stand the test of time and that someday when we put our bag away, people would talk about the thing we built and they would do it with like the way people talk about you guys. Could they do it with like a measure of respect? Like, wow, that was incredible what they accomplished. That business is exceptional. Could we build an exceptional team and develop them so that in our industry, we'd be known for having the most elite go-to-market team? Like that's something I aspire to try to accomplish. And people that are motivated by those kind of things, they want money, but they want to do something great. Could we build a leadership tree? Could we take people and develop them over time to be exceptional leaders that are well qualified to go run their own company someday and build their own go-to-market teams? And would they be able to do that in this shop? And would they value that in a way that would make them want to dedicate themselves to the career here? Small things like I talked about radical candor earlier, but that's a big deal. Like there's not many companies that talk openly with each other about what's going well and what's not going well and give each other honest feedback. You're doing great here, John. I really value what you're doing there. Or hey, I see a gap. I think we need to close it. Here's how I think we need to close it. Are you up for doing it together? And doing that
I love it.
consistently. And like that's so we're trying to build an ecosystem where the most elite people in the world are attracted to that because they can make money and they get a
I
bunch of other
love
things
it.
with it.
At the next QBR, for people that are listening, I would prepare yourself if you're leading a team to be prepared to talk about why you're here. Because what I would do is I'd start to get I'd tell people in the beginning, I'd get one person up and I would say, "Why are you here?" And the first person's going to do it, and they're gonna stumble on their story a little bit, but they're going to find their way. And then you tell the next person, and by the time the QBR is over, you have people understanding that if I'm not
Mm,
excited to be here, why would anybody else be? And in
yep.
this war on talent right now, if you don't have your value proposition down and you can't honestly say, like, why are you here? Like, what's so exciting about this place? You're not going to compete with because left to its own devices, where are you going to go? You're going to go to OTE, you're going to go to equity opportunity if there's no
Totally.
other comparatives. Uh,
Yep.
so I just highly recommend that,
I
especially.
love that. I mean, you're right. You nailed that. I should have had that in my answer, but like knowing their why is like what motivates them and what are they trying to accomplish is super important to keeping not only attracting people to your business, but keeping them in the business. One of the things that I'm really passionate about is like, can we stop moving people every 2 years across companies and can we actually stay somewhere and build something?
Mm.
Like building things is very hard. It's
Yeah.
very difficult to build a company. And you're moving around every 2 years or so as a seller. Like, what are you really accomplishing? Or
Well,
as a
what are they
leader?
really learning to your point? Like, because the money will
Yeah.
come and go, but the
Yeah.
skill set and the knowledge that you gain over time that's going to propel you the highest
Yeah.
in any organization. But if you're just making money, but you're skipping jobs every 18 months or 24 months, you're probably not going anywhere.
Totally.
How funny is it that we're having this conversation? When we were growing up, they were, if you moved around a lot, you were some type of an enigma. And then it went to if you stayed someplace too long, you were an enigma. And now we're
Yeah.
back to if you move around a lot, you're an enigma. And I think that if you're offering the opportunity, what do I get to stay? Like, what do I get to be a part of this? Because I can go
Mm,
make money anywhere.
that's it.
And it's the company's responsibility to
Yes.
be, I remember, Johnny, when you stood up at Blade Logic and you sat there and you talked about, Johnny did an incredible job. He said, I'm going to paraphrase it, but the purpose of their organization was to be the most dominating and feared sales organization in enterprise tech and enterprise sales. Do you remember that, Johnny?
Yeah, sure. That's every meeting I would lead with that. With that, I'd put that slide up first. Okay, now we can go. But let me
Everybody that was
what
in
we're
that
gonna do.
room
Yeah.
remembers that day and says, like when John McMahon got up and said that we are building the most elite,
Yeah.
feared enterprise software company on the planet. And they did. And
Yes.
so somebody coming and offering somebody $20,000 more of an OTE versus I was on the Blade Logic track that went to BMC, that went to MongoDB or to AppDynamic, or I mean, that is what you're selling.
It is. And it's special when you get the ingredients right. Like the thing that I've learned, and you guys know this very well, is like for every great company, there's a trail of carcasses of ones that didn't make it.
Yeah.
And the ingredients of great companies is actually pretty hard to find. And so when you get inside of a company where you've got a great founder, you've got a big market you're selling into, you've got differentiated technology, you got a sales team that you're inspired by or leadership that you're inspired by, that ain't nothing. And that's hard to replicate. And so I feel excited to put my head down and build inside of a company like that because I just think the ingredients to do it somewhere else are not that easy to find. And if you get it wrong, man, you waste 2, 3 years of your life doing something you're bummed out about. And then
But
you try
when
to
you
find the
build
next one.
those
You've seen it.
ingredients, yeah, you build those ingredients like you talked about, Sam, which you guys have done a great job at Harness. When somebody leaves, a lot of if people know the industry, they're like, why did he leave Harness? The thing's grown like this. It's got a great
Great point.
culture, great leaders, great product, big market, and the person left, like, why?
Yeah.
It's almost a red flag. Certain companies I was associated with, if somebody left, the whole industry would be seeing like, why? Something doesn't smell like right. Why would you leave that company at this stage?
That's right. It's a great point.
For the last 10 minutes, I'd encourage people to go back and put it on replay. If you are getting your teeth kicked in by these frontier companies, or I don't want to, by some of these people that are throwing some money around out there, and you don't get value in the last 10 minutes that was just talked about, go back and listen again.
Yeah.
Here's another thought for you, and I'll be thoughtful about my wording here, but I'm selling a very technical, complex platform, middle and top down, based on value to about 10 different personas. This is very elite level selling that the folks at Harness are doing, and they're doing a great job at it. If you go to one of the companies that you're probably describing that we don't have to say the names of, where the biggest job you have is like finding the email address of the person you send the order form to, you do that for a couple of years. It's like not going to the gym for a couple of years. Like you're atrophying muscles that you spent time building and developing. And while the somebody else is out there lifting every day and running and staying in shape. And then fast forward the clock a couple of years, when the next great round of jobs are up, who are they going to be wanting to hire?
And there's
Think about that
tons
a
of
Who's
lot.
going to have the
examples of
knowledge and the
that.
skill set, right? So, sorry, Johnny, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You guys are, it's such a good point without mentioning any names. There's tons of examples of that when, places have gone through the roof or what have you. And the great product market fit, when you actually look at some of the people on the back end of that start to go out into industries and interview, you really find gaps. And that was something that was surprising to me in my early days when, back in the day at the Oracles or it didn't, just because they made it at one company and they killed it at one company did not mean that they were going to make it in the environment that we were in. And so what I started to see is exactly what you just started. It didn't make them bad people because, hey, if I'm on the end of that and I'm baling the hay while the sun shines and I'm, you just got to know that that's part of the value proposition. If you're leading, this is actually what we're doing and learning while we're here. Like, this is why we're marketable. This is why we're the best. I think that's a great reminder that you guys landed on. Really good.
Thank you. It's also early days of AI. I think, it's exciting. It's moving super fast. It's like I said earlier, it's the most exciting time to be a part of, but it's also very early innings. I'm listening to podcasts and reading like you guys are to try to stay abreast of things that are happening. And it's like, you go back to the internet era. I mean, you used to pay to get onto the internet. You pay AOL or one of these folks to get onto the internet, and you used to pay for operating systems. And, then the internet was given away for free and it became ubiquitous. And then the value creation was actually in the applications you build on the internet, not the internet itself. And operating systems became free, and now it's about what you build around those things. And so it's very early days right now, and it's super exciting, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it. But what we think is valuable is still undetermined right now. And there's going to be a bunch of great companies that come out of this AI area, but who they are is yet to be seen. I think.
I think
you guys are obviously
top of the first. I don't even think we're in the early innings. I think we're in the top of the first.
Yeah. It feels that way.
Sam, are you guys hiring? You talk about 40% of what you're doing or 400 interviews or whatever. How do people get a hold of? How do people get a hold of you, the company? What suggestions would you get there?
Well, we have a careers page, so they can go there. My reps and leaders my leaders are probably outbounding to them in the market, hopefully trying to find them. So find a leader. in your market and ping them on LinkedIn, ping me, ping Carlos, anybody you want. We're happy to take an inbound from anyone and then get you connected to the right person.
I mean, hell, we didn't even talk about Carlos, Johnny, but what a great draw for a company. He's in that league,
I'm happy
right?
to talk about Carlos. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. He's in that. That's a value. That's part of a value proposition.
Huge.
Absolutely.
Carlos is a great
Absolutely.
leader. Yeah.
It was a great. I mean, if you're committed to excellence and you want to be a leader of your craft, it's hard to find anyone that's better than he is, and he has shaped me in the last 3 years unbelievably, and grateful to join the business, but grateful to share someone that we're like-minded. We're totally committed to doing great things, building great companies, building great teams, developing people, seeing them get promoted, and whatnot. And so we're like-minded in the way we execute the business, and I think he is doing his best work. I mean, the guy is unbelievably energetic and dialed in right now. So it's thrilled to be riding shotgun with him on the build.
You made that obvious today, buddy. Well done.
Thank you, Sam Costello. Appreciate it, man.
Guys, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for letting me be a part of it. And again, thanks for everything you're doing in the industry. Much appreciated.
Sure. Thanks,
Keep crushing it, dude.
Thank Johnny Cap. Thanks to everyone for listening to another episode of the Revenue Builders Podcast.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe, rate, and review the show to help us reach more people. This show is brought to you by Force Management, where we help companies improve sales performance, executing the growth strategy at the point of sale. Check out forcemanagement.com for more information.